You're really just like putting yourself at the mercy of the water or the river. You're only sort of in control. It's similar to when you are working on a piece and there's sort of that back and forth of finding the right path or the right mark or the right line. My name is Alexandra Riesco, but most people call me Chachi. I'm from Miami. I was born and raised there. It was great growing up there. You could be outside a lot because it's so warm all the time. I was always interested in art. My mom did a ton of like crafty activities with us. In college, I went in kind of with the intention of studying the sciences, and then I think I just took an art class at the end of freshman year. I had an amazing professor, and by some wonderful chance, she happened to be the printmaking department head, so she took us to the printmaking studio and kind of showed it to us at the end of the semester. Then I took printmaking with her, and that's how I got into printmaking. My friends were into kayaking. They kind of dragged me to a rolling session, which is where you learn how to flip a kayak over. That was actually the first thing I got really into, was rolling. And then I was dying to get on whitewater because I was like, I want to try to use this skill on a real river. So I went on a spring break trip with the kayaking club. That was my first time kayaking on whitewater. The first day on the water was kind of like, I had never been on a river before, but like in my own boat, in control of myself. I mean, that river was super beginner friendly, so it wasn't that dangerous, but because I didn't know, I was more afraid of messing up. At the same time, I was also getting into the earth sciences, and I had heard about this semester program for geology, and I really wanted to do that. The geology field program was called The Stretch. A lot of it was us walking around these areas where the rocks are exposed, like you can see the bedrock, and trying to figure out like what has happened since the layers have been deposited and kind of piecing together the history. It's the kind of thing that you can walk around this landscape and not notice it at all, but when you pay attention, there's so much there. And I like that geology and earth sciences had this outdoor aspect and connection to the landscape. When I started taking printmaking, it was kind of the first art class I took where we really could do whatever we wanted in terms of subject matter. And I had all these amazing pictures from the stretch and also this trip I took to Ecuador. I just started making landscapes from my trips. And then it got, I guess, a little more conceptual, just realizing the technique of printmaking was kind of similar to different processes in earth sciences. My TA in one of my printmaking classes, I had been making these prints of this river going through a canyon in Ecuador. We were looking at my piece one day and he said something along the lines of, it's so interesting that you're working on these images and you're incising into the plate like the river is doing in the landscape. And that was just a clicking moment where I was like, oh, he's right, like that's exactly true. And so I really started focusing more on that in the work and kind of thinking more about what's the process that forms the landscape and what's the process I'm using to form the image and how are they related to each other. In kayaking, you're sort of navigating this river and doing a semi-controlled descent of the river. And as you're going, you're sort of looking constantly for the path of least resistance. The river is also kind of going down that path of least resistance, carving this landscape out of whatever is there.
I'm Jake Lyon.
And I'm Brad Geismar.
And we met Chachi on our first day of college 10 years ago and been close friends ever since.
We're in northern New Mexico on the Rio Grande River. This section we're about to float is called the race course. And it's just a fun section, it runs you around, and it just doesn't get better than this.
Yow!
The biggest problem with Chachi is she looks absolutely miserable every time she kayaks for the whole time. And so we always have to check in with her. Like, you good? Are you okay? You look miserable.
She's usually having the time of her life.
Yes, Chachi. No teeth smile.
Is that the problem? Do I need to put my teeth out more?
Oh, I know. That's it. That's the look. I don't.
I'm happy.
I feel like we all kind of started kayaking around the same time, and Chachi had a ton of stoke for it. Chachi was just always really excited to get on the water. Super fun person to kayak with, even on a tough day.
She's got gumption. Chachi she's been always pretty fearless.
I have been described as quiet by many people who don't know me. But with my family, they can't get me to shut up, usually. Yeah. Same with close friends.
Oh, let's make a kayak flower and talk about our feelings.
I got that super zoom camera.
Oh yeah. I thought you said the Subarus.
Like the Instagram super zoom? The super zoom on Instagram that's like, and it like plays a little heart eye.
I don't know what's happening.
Your mental space is really hyper focused when you're in a kayak. Like, where do I need to be on the river and where am I going? Well, I think with making art, it's similarly like that hyper focus, that flow feeling. For me, it's important to do all these activities I do for my work, also for my mental health and well-being in general, but I can't just hole up and like work on my art all the time because I need that kind of outside feeding in to be inspired to make things in the first place. I started kayaking on the spring break trip, kayaked throughout the summer, and then I went on a little bit of a more advanced trip to Ecuador that December. The Ecuador trip was kind of a big step up, and the rivers were just so different from what we had been on before. They were just bigger and more powerful and more unpredictable too, because there were times when it would just rain a ton and the levels would go up and the rapids wouldn't be what we expected at all. It was kind of the first time I really realized I need to be fully responsible for my own safety. I can't depend on the decision making of my peers because, yeah, if they kind of make the wrong decision and I don't decide that this is just too much for me, like we could have something go really wrong. The third or fourth day, we went on one river section that was a higher level than we expected, and we kind of like turned a corner and got into this rapid that was a long, continuous rapid, and with the water level being higher, it was a lot more aggressive. I think everyone flipped, and I flipped over pretty early on and swam. I just didn't know what was happening at all the whole time. There was just a lot of water crashing. I just had no sense of like what to do, where to go, or how to even begin to try to get myself out of there. And that was really terrifying. I don't think I was actually like gonna die in this rapid, but it was the first time that that thought sort of occurred to me on the river, and it really scared me. We finally got to the end of that rapid, and I was really shaken and really wanted to stop for the day, but we were in a canyon, so I couldn't hike out, and I just had to get back in my boat and continue. And that was really, I think, traumatic for me to have to just keep going. I felt like I had to stick with it and grow from it, I guess. And another big thing was just there weren't a lot of women on the trip, so it kind of felt like this pressure to continue being a woman in the kayaking club and continue getting better and be a leader for the younger women. That definitely changed how I thought about kayaking and how I thought about making decisions on the river and whether to walk something or just not paddle on a day when I wasn't feeling good. With kayaking, it really kind of forces you to figure that out because it can be really stressful and dangerous. But I think that did carry over into kind of my decision making in my like career path and choosing something more non-traditional and yeah, just not doing what everyone else was doing because it's easier to not push against that. In the art classes, we had a lot of artists come in and talk to us about what their path had looked like. And I think that helped so much with me really considering seriously doing it. The idea of becoming an artist, I think, was almost the hardest thing about it, was like deciding I'm gonna be an artist or I am an artist. You just kind of have to decide you're gonna be an artist or you are an artist, and just keep making work. After the first trip to Ecuador, that was tough on my confidence. My kayaking community was really supportive and really encouraging. I got a lot better just like sticking with it, and also just with time, you know, like just having had more experience, I think made it a lot better.
I think that's actually a very unique Chachi thing, is she just follows her interests and does not worry about what they mean in her plan, her greater plan of life. Just when she likes something, she just gets into it.
and she just does
good at it.
And she's good at it, and she
Good at
doesn't
it.
compare herself or worry about anyone else. She just does what makes her happy, and that's a pretty admirable thing.
It's a really fun thing to be around. I don't think it's crazy to say that we love Chachi.
Yeah, we love Chachi.
Yeah.
The piece I'm currently working on is inspired by the Colorado River. And this piece and this series, I think philosophies of time tie in a lot because we're always experiencing the present moment, but there's your whole past and your whole future that feel as if they're not in focus in the same way as the present. I think about that a lot with like memories of these trips and stuff. Like, I'm not there right now, but why does that make it any less good? So with these pieces, I sort of would trace out the river and I kind of made it loop in a circle, kind of like following these theories of a more circular view of time than a like straight line view. It's also funny because people love to compare time to a river. Definitely throughout the kayaking journey, my relationship with rivers has changed. I think the main thing is just kind of developing that healthy respect for water and rivers and the dangers they pose and learning how to navigate the risks and still be able to have these experiences in really isolated, amazing places. I think I kept kayaking in spite of the scary experiences and the potential risks and danger because, well, I think partially, strangely, that is part of the appeal. It's like that really in the moment feeling of being on the river and just like really depending on your skills to get down without getting hurt or worse. It's a weird relationship, but it kind of makes you really appreciate living and just like that you're able to even do this.
It is cold. Confirmed.